You wouldn't even understand your own paycheck." He sneered, laughing in front of everyone in his sleek, high-rise office. The room froze. She stood there, humiliated, every eye on her as the millionaire mocked her, certain no one could understand her. But beneath her calm, something was stirring, a quiet strength that no amount of money or power could crush. In seconds, the laughter would stop, the room would shift, and the man who thought he owned everything would discover just how wrong he was. How could a maid, overlooked and underestimated, turn ridicule into a moment that no one would forget? She had been working in the high-rise office for months, moving quietly through the polished floors and glass walls, always in the background, always overlooked. Most people didn't even notice her, unless something needed fixing, a chair straightened, a desk wiped clean. She had learned to stay invisible, telling herself it was safer that way. But invisibility never stopped her from dreaming. Late nights were spent with books she had saved for months to buy, teaching herself languages, studying the world she barely got to touch, sharpening a mind that could have matched anyone in the room. The millionaire who owned the office saw none of that. To him, she was just a maid, a shadow in the corner, someone to belittle, to remind himself of the power he carried so easily. His arrogance filled the room, bouncing off the glass walls and polished surfaces. Today, he had important guests, partners who came to witness deals worth millions, and he was eager to impress them, not with strategy or skill, but with dominance. And that meant humiliating her right there in front of everyone. She felt the tension before it even arrived, the way his eyes lingered, the cruel curve of his smirk. Each word he planned was calculated, each glance a tool meant to intimidate. She had long known her place in the hierarchy of this world, yet she carried herself with quiet dignity, a steadiness born from years of navigating spaces that were never meant for her. As the office hummed with the chatter of suits and the soft click of polished shoes, the stage was quietly set. Today would feel like any other to him, but the energy in the room carried an unspoken weight, one that hinted that not everything would go as expected. The room fell silent for a heartbeat before his laughter cut through it, sharp and deliberate. "You wouldn't even understand your own paycheck," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. Around the glass-walled office, the partners shifted in their seats, some pretending not to notice, others exchanging uncomfortable glances. She could feel the weight of their eyes, the judgment of a room that assumed she had no voice, no agency, no dignity. He circled her like a predator, pointing fingers, sneering, each word meant to remind her, and everyone else, that she was beneath him. "This is what we put up with every day," he added, turning to the guests, a smirk plastered across his face. "She tries, bless her, but she just can't keep up." "It's amusing," he laughed again, loud and cruel, and for a moment the world shrank around her, leaving only the sting of humiliation. Her hands gripped the edge of the cart she pushed, knuckles whitening, but her eyes didn't waver. She had learned early that survival in spaces like this required patience. Every insult, every mocking glance had been catalogued, stored, studied. She had been underestimated her whole life, dismissed for her skin, her accent, the uniform she wore. And yet, beneath the imposed meekness, a quiet intelligence had been growing, a shield forged from years of knowing the world would not bend to her. He leaned closer now, voice dropping to a harsh whisper meant only for her. "You should know your place." The words were designed to wound, but instead, they lit a spark she had been nurturing for months. Around them, the office hummed with polished confidence and high-stakes deals, but all of it would crumble in the next moments. The room had gone still. Every chair, every polished surface, every sharp glance of the partners seemed to hold its breath. He stood frozen, the smirk that had once carried him now replaced by disbelief. She spoke first in Mandarin. "你以为我不懂你在说什么吗?" Then, with the same calm authority, she delivered it in German. "Glaubst du, ich verstehe nicht, was du sagst?" Finally, she said it in French. "Tu crois que je ne comprends pas ce que tu dis?" With each language, the humiliation he had intended for her ricocheted back at him, exposing his arrogance and cruelty for all to see. For a moment, he tried to regain control, opening his mouth to speak, to laugh, to dismiss it as a misunderstanding. But no sound came. The partners' eyes were locked on him, wide and unblinking, their admiration for his wealth overshadowed by the stark reality of his actions. The humiliation he had intended for her now reflected entirely upon him, sharper, more public, impossible to escape. She felt a surge of something she had not allowed herself before, pride, clarity, a quiet triumph. Months of learning, waiting, observing, had led to this single moment, where intellect and courage outweighed status and wealth. Every second stretched painfully for him, each heartbeat reminding him that he had underestimated someone he had dismissed as insignificant. He looked around the room, searching for an ally, a way to reclaim his image, but found none. Instead, he faced the unspoken judgment of peers who now saw the truth. The woman they had ignored was not only intelligent, but fearless, unbroken, and entirely human. His laughter, once a weapon, had turned against him, echoing in the vast office like a warning. She remained calm, composed, letting the weight of the moment settle. This was more than humiliation. It was a reckoning. And as he finally swallowed the bitter reality, the room seemed to tilt. The balance of power subtly but irrevocably shifted. In that instant, it was clear nothing would ever be the same for him or for her. The silence stretched, heavy and charged, before the first whisper broke through, carrying a truth that could not be ignored. She had changed the game entirely. The room remained silent long after the words had fallen, each partner processing what they had just witnessed. The millionaire's arrogance had been stripped bare, leaving him small and unsteady before the very people whose admiration he had sought. For her, the moment was more than vindication. It was recognition, not just of her intelligence, but of her dignity, resilience, and the quiet strength that had carried her through years of being underestimated, overlooked, and dismissed. She returned to her duties, but nothing felt the same. The polished floors, the glass walls, the hum of the office, they now existed in a space reshaped by courage and intellect, where power could no longer be defined by wealth alone. Colleagues who had ignored her before looked at her differently, not just with surprise, but with respect. And while the millionaire struggled to regain control of his fractured image, she carried herself with a calm that no amount of money, privilege, or status could shake. The significance of that day extended far beyond a single office. It was a reminder that discrimination and arrogance thrive in silence, but even a single act of courage can challenge the status quo. Language, knowledge, and composure became tools not just for survival, but for justice. A subtle yet undeniable force that reminded everyone present that no one is powerless, and no one's humanity should ever be questioned. Her story became more than a private triumph. It became a mirror reflecting the quiet battles faced by countless individuals in workplaces, schools, and public spaces around the world. It asked a simple, piercing question. How often do we underestimate someone because of their skin, their accent, or the uniform they wear? And how often do we fail to recognize the strength hidden in plain sight? In the end, she left an indelible mark, not just on that high-rise office, but on everyone who witnessed it, reminding the world that dignity, intelligence, and courage are never bound by privilege or status. And the question lingers. When will we finally start seeing each other for who we truly are, rather than what we appear to be?